अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः। ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So today we will be reading from the most auspicious, the king of all scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 42. We are almost nearing the end of the prayers by Queen Kunti. And before we start reading these prayers, we'll recite the invocation verses for Srimad Bhagavatam. Um, I forgot how we are doing this. Do we lead follow or do we just do it? Uh, I guess I'll just do it myself, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, I think it'll be easier if we just do, we mute so we don't get a lot
Right,
of background noise.
right.
But we'll follow.
Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we'll recite the verse 1.8.42. Tvai me ananya vishaya matir madhupate sakrit ratim udvahata dadha gange vaugham udanvati. Tvai me ananya vishaya matir madhupate sakrit ratim udvahata dadha gange vaugham udanvati. त्वयि मे अनन्यविषया मतिर्मधुपते सकृत् रतिम् उद्वाहता दग्धा गङ्गेवौघम् उदन्वती. Would other devotees like to repeat?
त्वयि मे अनन्य विषया मतिर्मधुपते सकृत् रतिम् उद्वहतात् अद्धा गङ्गे वौघम् उदन्वती.
त्वयि मे नन्यविषया मतिर्मधुपते सकृत् रतिम् उद्वहतद् अधा गङ्गे वौगम् उदन्वती.
Tvai me ananya vishaya matir madhupati sakrit ratim udvatad ataha gange ogogam advanvati.
त्वयि मे नन्य विषया मतिर्मधुपते सुकृत रतिम उद्वहतत् अध गंगे वौघम उदन्वति.
Okay, we can continue if anybody else would like to repeat, they can still do so. Okay, we will continue. So, word by word translation, or we call it synonyms. Tvai, unto you. Me, mai. Anan,
Sorry,
yes.
do you want to screen share the verse purport, or maybe ask Prabhu can do?
Let me see if I have the. Yeah, it looks like I can do that. Sure. Are you able to see?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Tvai, unto you. Me, my. Ananya Vishaya, unalloyed. Mati, attention. Madhupate, O Lord of Madhu. Asakrit, continuously. Ratim, attraction. Udvahatat, may overflow. Adha, directly. Ganga, the Ganges. Iva, like. Ogham, flows. Udanvati, down to the sea. Translation. It's just not going down. Translation. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charna Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Perfection of pure devotional service is attained when all attention is diverted towards the transcendental loving service of the Lord. To cut off the tie of all other affections does not mean complete negation of the finer elements, like affection for someone else. This is not possible. A living being, whoever he may be, must have this feeling of affection for others, because this is a symptom of life. The symptoms of life, such as desire, anger, hankerings, feelings of attraction, etc., cannot be annihilated. Only the objective has to be changed. Desire cannot be negated, but in devotional service, the desire is changed only for the service of the Lord in place of desire for sense gratification. The so-called affection for family, society, country, etc. consists of different phases of sense gratification. When this desire is changed for the satisfaction of the Lord, it is called devotional service. In the Bhagavad Gita, we can see that Arjuna desired not to fight with his brothers and relations just to satisfy his own personal desires. But when he heard the message of the Lord, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, he changed his decision and served the Lord. And for his doing so, he became a famous devotee of the Lord. For it is declared in all the scriptures that Arjuna attained spiritual perfection by devotional service to the Lord in friendship. The fighting was there, the friendship was there, Arjuna was there, and Krishna was there. But Arjuna became a different person by devotional service. Therefore, the prayers of Kunti also indicate the same categorical changes in activities. Srimati Kunti wanted to serve the Lord without diversion, and that was her prayer. This unalloyed devotion is the ultimate goal of life. This unalloyed devotion is the ultimate goal of life. Our attention is usually diverted to the service of something which is non-godly or not in the program of the Lord. When the program is changed into service of the Lord, that is to say, when the senses are purified in relation with the service of the Lord, it is called pure, unalloyed devotional service. Srimati Kunti Devi wanted that perfection and prayed for it from the Lord. Her affection for the Pandavas and the Vrishnis is not out of the range of devotional service because the service of the Lord and the service of the devotees are identical. Sometimes service to the devotee is more valuable than service to the Lord. But here, the affection of Kunti Devi for the Pandavas and the Vrishnis was due to family relation. This tie of affection in terms of material relation is the relation of Maya because the relations of the body or the mind are due to the influence of the external energy. So there's this line which is important, which we will come back to during the discussion. But the affection of Kunti Devi, but here in this verse, the affection of Kunti Devi for the Pandavas and the Vrishnis was due to family relation. Let's remember this line by Srila Prabhupada. Relations of the soul established in relation with the Supreme Soul are factual relations. When Kunti Devi wanted to cut off the family relation, she meant to cut off the relation of the skin. The skin relation is the cause of material bondage, but the relation of the soul is the cause of freedom. This relation of the soul to the soul can be established by the medium of the relation with the supersoul. Seeing in the darkness is not seeing, but seeing by the light of the sun means to see the sun and everything else which was unseen in darkness. That is the way of devotional service. Very beautiful and very wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada comes to the essence of the verse. Really, it's the purport of this verse, the purport, the essence of the verse. Okay, so we will So the translation of the verse once again is, O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. So this is part of, this verse is a part um, of the two verses, the one just before, on which Prem Rup Madhavi Mataji had given a very nice class last week. And she had mentioned that verse goes as, O Lord of the universe, the soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please therefore sever my tie of affection for my kingsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. So in that verse, she's asking to sever the tie, her ties to her relatives, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. And here she's saying that once the ties are severed, let my attention go exclusively, Ananya Vishaya, no other Vishaya, Ananya, exclusive, exclusively to you, Madhupate. So my attention, my mati should go exclusively to the Lord, like the Ganges flows towards the sea, exclusively towards the sea. It doesn't want to go anywhere else during its journey. Its sole purpose is to reach the sea. So this topic of uh, removing her attachment or severing her attachment, her desire to continue her relationship with her kith and kin, with her relation, with her relatives, the Vrishnis and the Pandavas, and instead divert or direct her entire attention to the Lord, is the essence of these two verses. And this will be the last topic that Kunti Devi will cover as part of her verses. And then she will conclude her prayers by glorifying Lord Krishna, will offer her obeisances to Lord Krishna, and that will be the conclusion of the prayers in the next verse, which another wonderful devotee will present to you all next week. So I will continue this topic of severing our affection with our relatives. So this is a very important and intricate topic that we must understand carefully and understand correctly. What does it mean to give up our attachment or our affection for those that we love, those who are near and dear to us? So, for that, so that's the main topic that I will be attempting to speak about today. I have derived the content from listening to various classes by some wonderful devotees, and I have attempted to put together a small discussion. So please correct me wherever I have made any mistakes, and please offer your comments after after the presentation. So to understand what does it mean to sever or cut our ties with our relatives, and why is it important, we must understand what exactly is attachment and detachment. So when we are performing devotional service, everywhere in the Bhagavad Gita, in so many other books, it is mentioned that we must develop detachment to material things, and we must give up our attachments and create detachment. Vita raga bhaya krodha. This is 4.10. Lord Krishna says, Vita means after giving up Vita raga. Raga means attachments. Raga, bhaya, krodha, manmaya, tad ashritaha. Come and with your mind and intelligence focused on me, take shelter of me. So giving up attachments is mentioned at so many places. And approaching Krishna, um, making spiritual progress, etc., giving up these attachments, all these things are interrelated. If we don't give up our attachments, then it is our material attachments, then it's going to be very hard to make spiritual progress and approach Krishna. So, we must understand what are these contaminations in our bhakti, in our desire to approach Krishna that prevent it, that hinder it. And we must understand that these contaminations, these things which look like, which may not directly look like impediments, but they are impediments in our progress of devotional service, these family ties, etc. So that's something we will try to uh, um, dissect and understand. Through the instructions of the spiritual master, we should be able to discriminate what are attachments and what are not attachments, or what are contaminating attachments and what are desirable attachments. So, um, sometimes we kind of fall into the trap of detachment. I want to create detachment. Now, um, that is not the right kind of understanding. Simply creating detachment is not the right understanding, because then one gets attached to detachment. So that is the understanding of the Gyanis. They go for simply creating detachment. Let's get detached from the material things. That's it. So they are increasing their detachment from material comforts. But this kind of artificial detachment does not last for a very long time. So in bhakti, such kind of detachment is condemned. Sometimes such kind of detachment is highly glorified in the material world. Oh, he's a very detached person. But that that glorification gives rise internally to some subtle attachment to that glorification, and then one goes into more detachment to get that attachment from the glorification. So there are very subtle ways in which this kind of detachment, which is devoid of Krishna, which is not in relationship to Krishna, is not helpful. And our acharyas go to an extent and say that it is actually completely useless. So, this whole concept of like social work or helping other people, now that's not being condemned at all. One should not misunderstand, but one should help others in a particular mood, that these are also the parts and parcel of Krishna, these living entities whom I am helping. That's what Srila Prabhupada was saying towards the end of his purport, that we should see them in relation to Krishna, in relation to the super soul. When we see them, when we see other things because of the sun. And because of the sun, we see them, therefore we can have a relationship with them. So sun, in that explanation Srila Prabhupada was giving, is the unifying factor. So in the same way, the super soul or Krishna is the unifying factor. And in that sense, we can help others, we can help our fellow our friends, relatives, etc., but knowing that everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. So that is the problem of the, for example, of the Gyanis. Similarly, the Karmis or the Karma Yogis are very attached to their work. The Gyanis are attached to detachment. The yogis or the dhyana yogis or the yogis, what is known as yoga, in the chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, those who perform austerities, they are attached to austerities. So karmis, consciousness is activity oriented, Jnani's consciousness is knowledge oriented or detachment oriented, and yogis consciousness is austerity oriented. So as long as all these above are not associated to Krishna in some way or the other, then they all take us away from Krishna. However, detachment automatically happens when one is attached to Krishna. When one gets attached to Krishna, he experiences a higher taste, and through that higher taste of devotional service, one loses the taste for all other material attachments. In the scriptures, now this is something very, at least when I was putting together this presentation and I was reading up and hearing about it, 5 types of very strong attachments are mentioned at a bodily level or material attachments. The first, and these attachments are like is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, like a inverted upside down banyan tree, and the roots of these banyan tree are very deep, and it is very, very hard to uproot this tree. So please see where in our lives and our consciousness these attachments have taken roots. So the first one is mentioned as the attachment to the material body itself, the physical body. Oh, I am intelligent, I am beautiful, I am American, I am black, I am white, or whatever is related to the I am young, you are old, I am strong, you are weak. So, like that, there can be attachment to the body itself. The next one is the attachment due to the bodily connections, which means that relatives and family members. So these are in relation to one's own body. Somebody is born out of one's body, or somebody knows that I am the father, or somebody knows I am the mother. This other living entity came out of my body, and therefore there is attachment to that person. Um, or this person is, married to me, or various other scenarios may be there, and there is so much attachment to uh, at the bodily level with relatives, with family members. A mother, for example, has so much love. We use this example of the love of the mother um, when we give various classes and all that, and it truly comes, gives a very good understanding of the love that Krishna has for us, like a father. Like a mother's love to a child is very unmotivated. When the mother loves the child, she doesn't want anything back in return, and she will continue to love the child regardless of more or less whatever the child does. So like that, this relationship is kind of gives a good understanding. But there is a serious flaw in this argument as well, which we don't mention usually. That flaw is that the mother has such deep love, but it is only for her own child. That love completely vanishes when it is for someone else's child. There is no love in that situation. We'll possibly use this example later of Maharaj Chitraketu and his son, and how the other wives of Maharaj Chitraketu were so envious of the son who was born of one of the wives or one of the queens of Maharaj Chitraketu, that they poisoned the sun and killed the sun. So such a deep level of uh, resentment and um, hatred can exist between a woman and a small child if if that relationship of motherliness, of being born out of one's body, does not exist. So what happens to that same mother who so lovingly nourishes her own child but is willing to kill the child of another woman out of envy? Where does that love go? In that case, the relationship of this analogy to Krishna's love for us breaks down, completely breaks down. So, that is the second type of material attachment to our family members, our relatives. Another type of attachment is to our possessions and property, the, whatever money, bank balance, or, whatever assets we have, net worth, all those things. There is so much attachment to that, uh, and the attachment doesn't build up slowly. It sometimes build up pretty fast and pretty instantly. When a child is born, as soon as he can make sense out of things, he is told, "You are the heir of this whole, expansive kingdom, or this expansive business, or whatever empire, etc." And he starts treating himself as the heir, as the owner. What has he done to earn that? Absolutely nothing other than taking birth from the body of the previous owner. So that feeling of possession comes so strongly, and connects and attaches one, which is very hard to uproot, very hard to detach. Then there is another kind of attachment, which is to the knowledge or the material knowledge, attachment to material understanding, material knowledge, the quest, and taken little far away or taken little further down, it translates to trying to figure out the supreme truth through material knowledge, trying to find the map. You are lost in a cave, in a dark cave, and you're trying to map the cave. You're trying to find out where this cave leads to, etc., etc., but you are in complete darkness. How can you map out the whole cave, try to understand the truth, the absolute truth, in this example, the reality of the nature of the cave, unless you light the real lamp of spiritual knowledge? So, material knowledge, trying to understand the absolute reality through material knowledge, is another type of attachment, and people spend their whole lives trying to figure it out. It seems, when Einstein died, his nurse saw that, on his bedside was a notebook with written some newly written equations, and those were the last things he wrote, probably a few minutes or hours before he died. And his consciousness was completely covered in equations and mathematics, trying to figure out this, the nature of the material world, let alone the nature of the spiritual world or the absolute truth. So, that strong quest to find it out at a material level is another very strong attachment for some people. And finally, the fifth kind of attachment is attachment to some very um, pompous rituals, very big rituals that one uh, is attached to, which are devoid of devotion to Krishna. And one gets attached. Now, at superficially, they may be attached to Krishna, but the attachment is not to Krishna when performing those activities, and when there is no attention or no attachment to Krishna when in performing those activities, then from a dictionary sense, those become rituals. If there is consciousness of Krishna in performing those activities, then they are no longer, we don't use the word ritual to define them or describe them. We call it as devotional service or Krishna conscious activity. But one gets attached to the act itself, and the acknowledgement and the glorification one receives because of simply the performance of the act, that one forgets Krishna, even if that activity is supposed to be devoted to Krishna. One forgets Krishna and just becomes attached to those rituals, and that is another kind of attachment. So among all these kinds of attachments, the first two, or these I had sort of described, or as I have heard, they have been described in decreasing order of um, strength, or decreasing of how strongly we are gripped in these. So the first one is attachment to the material body itself, our own body. When our own survival, when our own is at stake, then even the attachment to relatives, sometimes relatives and family members, does not take preference for most people. I remember when I've shared this few times. I was in a swimming pool with my son long ago, when he was learning to swim and I was teaching him to swim, and we were on the deep end of the pool, and we were both, he had learned swimming, so he was like, I wasn't holding him, and that's why we were in the deep end, otherwise we would have been in the shallow end. And we were both swimming, and somehow or the other, I think we were diving or swimming, I don't remember. He caught my leg while we were both underwater, and due to him catching my leg, I couldn't come back up. And in that moment, I remember what happened. I don't remember what happened exactly, what were the thoughts in my mind, but my instinctive reaction, I kicked him very hard to let go of myself, to free myself. My first priority, not out of thought, but simply out of the intrinsic reaction, was to get rid of him. And then when I breathed, then I immediately looked where he is. And after a second or two, I saw him also come up and everything was fine. But I realized in that moment that when one's own survival is threatened, um, then um, then even the relationship to family members is takes a lower precedence. I heard a real story when a building was on fire and a child was trapped, and the mother, who was able to somehow come out, did not have the strength to go back in herself and get the child. Now in some movies, or maybe there's some situations of some very, courageous mothers who would do that, but in this situation she could not. So this shows us that, so anyhow, the topic of the this discussion is the attachment to our material attachment to our relatives and family members. So that attachment is very, very hard to give up compared to the other lower ones, like attachment to property, to material possessions, or the attachment to knowledge, to pursuit of knowledge, or the attachment to grand rituals. So among all those, the attachment to our relatives is very strong. So like Srila Prabhupada described, what is detachment? So detachment is not, in all cases, it does not mean to leave or to abandon our family members. That's not the meaning. All it means is to know, to have the knowledge that all along what I have been thinking is mine is actually not mine. It is Krishna's. It belongs to Krishna. And we hand it back to Krishna. That is detachment. There is no other difference. We let Krishna is our supreme father. We let the father take care of his children instead of thinking these are mine. No, we are all children of Krishna. The father, for example, derives great joy in providing for all the benefits, for all the facilities to the child, clothes, toys, food, everything. So, why do we have to take over Krishna's role? If we think that we will provide those facilities to myself, if the child thinks I don't need the father's help to provide me facilities, the child would be called, crazy or, you know, is not normal. So, in the same sense, if today our situation is we are thinking, oh, I will provide my own facilities. So, detachment in essence is to simply give back our control into Krishna's hands. In other words, becoming fully dependent on Krishna, just like a small innocent child has no problem in being fully dependent on his or her parents. That is detachment. There is nothing more to detachment than that. Having that faith that Krishna will take care of us, having faith that his plans to take care of us are better than our plans to take care of ourselves. Having that faith and then giving whatever we have, putting whatever we have as our attachments, as our possessions, as our family members, relatives in Krishna's hands, and having the consciousness that my true relationship is with Krishna. So that is the essence of detachment. And when we give ourselves, when we become fully dependent on Krishna in this way, then Krishna does take care of his devotees. This is absolutely true. I can say that I have seen some instances. Of course, I have not given myself fully in Krishna's hands, but out of my own attractions or out of my own other bigger attractions, I have tried to at least superficially put some things in Krishna's hands. But I could see that even when I pretended to put some things in Krishna's hands, he has reciprocated with me in very nice ways. And this just Krishna is so nice that even if a child asks out of pretense, just for his own benefit, the father gives. And this the understanding here should be for the child that my father really cares. When I asked him for something, even though it did not genuinely, still he showed so much love. How much love he will show if I genuinely depend on him. So that should be our goal, that should be our consciousness, to put ourselves fully in Krishna's hands and not think that anything is ours, anything we can control, or anything that belongs to us in the first place that we can control to begin with. Everything belongs to Krishna and he is the controller. Once we think like that, then we become fully detached. And sometimes when we put ourselves into Krishna's hands, in some scenarios, like we said, Krishna's plan to take care of us is definitely always better than our plans to take care of ourselves. But as part of that plan, sometimes Krishna gives some kind of token punishment or some token suffering, or if not that, he shows us temporarily shows us the danger of the material world. to make us realize that the direction we are going in is not right, or to purify us, to correct us. And sometimes he may take away our wealth or health. Sometimes he may give a lot of wealth, and sometimes he tests the devotees, his children. We must The devotee should never be disturbed in any of these situations. Never. He should treat all these situations. The devotee, the pure, of course, I have no experience of this. I'm sharing this simply based on what I have heard and read. But the devotee puts himself or herself fully in Krishna's hands and treats everything that happens afterwards simply as Krishna's personal reciprocation with him, whether those things may appear to be favorable or unfavorable. If they are unfavorable, the devotee treats those as necessary purification that is being done by the father. For example, if my tooth needs a root canal, my father will take me to the dentist, and it might hurt a little, but that will ultimately save me from great danger later. So the father's act of taking me to the dentist to get a root canal done is not an act of, of suffering, but ultimately it is an act um, of purification. So that is how the pure devotees should see these things, even if these things may happen in their lives. So Krishna is very, very, very expert in making sure that we get completely purified of all our diseases, all our material diseases and our material attachments, our topmost diseases. So, and all this we understand from the Bhagavad Gita, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna gives so many wonderful examples of devotees who have built some attachment, and how uh, especially attachment to their relatives, and how they were able to give up that attachment and attach themselves fully to Lord Krishna. There is the first example that comes right away in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is that of Narad Muni himself. He explains to Srila Vyasadeva how he was this young boy in his past life, and when he heard the the scriptures, the absolute knowledge from the sages, from the fully realized souls that visited during the Chaturmasya period, and he had the opportunity to serve them, he had this deep desire in his heart to attach himself to Krishna. And he had one attachment left, which was his mother, and that was his only but very severe attachment. And to purify Narad Muni in his previous life, Krishna took away that one attachment from him. Now, how hard it was on Narad Muni to accept that loss, but he accepted it in the absolute right spirit. He did not lose faith. Instead, he took even more refuge in Krishna, and spent the rest of that life simply glorifying Krishna and thinking of Krishna. Now, sometimes people are given choices to accept Krishna and they reject Krishna, like Duryodhan. He actually had the fortune of choosing. Arjuna didn't have the fortune of choosing. Lord Krishna, for some reason, gave him the choice, okay, you choose between my big Narayani Sena or me. So foolish people don't choose Krishna. But Narad Muni in his previous life chose Krishna. Even though he suffered such a big loss, he chose the Lord. Now we must understand that in the case of Queen Kunti, there are two components to her attachment. One is, now in her case, she is related to these Pandavas who are very, very exalted, wonderful devotees of the Lord. So one can think, what is the problem in associating with devotees or having attachment to devotees of the Lord? That is where I was mentioning that line in Srila Prabhupada's purport. He's clarifying, our acharyas clarify the doubts that come up in the scriptures. So he's clarifying there that her attachment to her relatives was at two different levels, at the material level and at the spiritual level. What she's asking for detachment from her relatives is the one at the material level, not at the spiritual level. Similarly, we can see this wonderful example of Prahlad Maharaj. He had very strong spiritual attachment to his father, but he had zero material attachment to his father. How can we see that? When Narsingadev killed Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad Maharaj was not disturbed even one bit that my father is being killed. And he was so happy that his father was being relieved of this demoniac body, and he will, be free from this. But apparently, he was not aware that he would be liberated as well. Of course, this is transcendental pastime, and he was pure devotee, and he had the full knowledge right from when he was in the womb of his mother. But still, it appeared that he was not aware that his father will be liberated when being killed at the hands of Lord Vishnu or Lord Nrsingadev. Therefore, at the spiritual level, his strong attachment for his father is seen because when Lord Nrsingadev offers him the opportunity to ask for a boon, the only thing he asks, he first says, I don't need anything. But if you want to grant me something, please forgive my father for the sinful activities he has committed. That is the thing he asks, and he asks for his father to be liberated. And then Lord Nrsingadev said that has already been done. Not only that, 21 generations have been liberated, not only one generation. So we can see his spiritual attachment to his father, but at a material level, he was not attached at all. So that is there are always two components of one's attachment to one's relatives, friends, or any living entity, at the material level and at the spiritual level. And there are so many examples in other examples of attachments to our relatives, our very close relatives. We don't have time to go into those, but you can read through these wonderful examples of, we were mentioning Maharaj Chitraketu wanted a son so badly. He wanted a son, and then finally he got a son by the mercy of the sages, um, um, Angira Muni and Narad Muni. And later, as I said, he lost his son. After so much waiting, he got one son, and he lost that son, and lost that son not out of anything else. The other wives killed the son. What a great loss. And then we see how Narad Muni, and again, I think accompanied by Angira Muni, comes and revives the son, because King Chitraketu is so sad and so upset. When the son wakes up, he says that, who are you? I don't recognize you. Which father you are? I have millions of fathers. I have been a cat, dog, uh, animal, this, that, fish. I have had mother and father in every life. So which one are you? I can't recognize you. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. And when Chitraketu hears that, then he realizes that his such deep connection was at a bodily level. And then he becomes satisfied, and he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord. He chants the mantras given by Narad Muni, and performs pure devotional service to the Lord. He receives a benediction also that he will he will get liberated in one more, in his next life he will get liberated. And then that whole pastime occurs when he gets cursed by Mother Parvati and takes birth as a very devotee demon, Vritrasura, and has a glorious death. So much attachment one has to our relatives, and all these attachments for relatives is coming. This is another thing Srila Prabhupada had mentioned, is coming from our original attachment to Lord Krishna. In the dormant form, that attachment exists to Lord Krishna. We are unable to express it fully, so we express it marginally, minutely, through our attachment to our, in a contaminated way. Like in the 15th chapter, it said the material world is a contaminated reflection. I remember where I was listening Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji's class, I think last time, that the reflection is contaminated. The tree is standing still, but if you look at it in the water, because the waves are there, the tree looks wavy. It's not like a nice picture of a tree. It is a distorted picture of a tree when we look at its reflection. Similarly, in the material world, we try to express our love, our relationship with others at a material level, but ultimately they are a expression of our dormant love towards Lord Krishna. So we must realize, we must develop the discrimination of the attachment to our relatives, whether it is at a material level or whether it is at a spiritual level, and we should try to eliminate our material component of that attachment to others. And for as every and Srila Prabhupada was saying in the purport, every living entity has affection. It's because we are living, have a living entity, we cannot not have affection to others. But um, um, as human beings, as a cat also loves its kitten, a dog loves its puppies. As human beings, we have to realize what should be the unique thing we have as human beings is the power to realize what should be the object of our attachment, and that object should be Krishna. If our consciousness is consumed by material things, then we are in the material world. But if our consciousness is absorbed in various activities related to Krishna, then our consciousness is purified and we are as good as if we are in the spiritual world. And I see we are running out of, or we have already run out of time, so I'll wrap it up. Yeah, so sometimes, so we should have this discrimination and very carefully discriminate that whether I am attached to my relatives because they are my relatives or because they are parts and parcel of Krishna. Sometimes these two get collapsed. As practicing devotees, sometimes we feel, oh, my family is there, we are all doing devotional service, so it's okay to have that attachment, we are together doing that. There is reality in that, but there is also at a certain subtle level a collapsing. It becomes a justification to remain attached. Sometimes we go to the temple and we have friends, we have, so we are all practicing devotees. That's good, we are attaching ourselves to devotees of Krishna, but we have to see at a subtle level, is it also a bodily level of attachment? Oh, he's my friend, let me go and sit next to him. Oh, I don't like that person very much, so I'll kind of avoid that person. If he's coming this way, I'll go this way. Or I won't sit next to him, or something like that. That then we have to realize that we are getting mixed up with this attachment to devotees of Krishna is now becoming, then it becomes at a material level, at some level, and we have to be very careful and discriminate that and remove that material attachment and only let the spiritual attachment remain. So that is what Mother Kunti was worried about when she's praying to Lord Krishna to sever her ties and exclusively devote her attachment to Krishna, it is that fear that maybe she will at some time collapse her attachment and it will become at a material level, and she doesn't want that, and so she completely wants to sever her ties. That's how she is praying with her relatives, so that there is no even any possibility of getting uh, attached to them, and exclusively attach herself to Lord Krishna. So in conclusion, we have to develop attachment to Krishna so that he dominates our mind all the time, not our relatives. We have to look into our heart, who we are attached to, how much fraction or how much portion of our heart in our heart is there attachment to Krishna versus to our relatives, our family members. And we have to make a plan, a strong plan to develop attachment to Krishna. And that plan starts with doing service to Krishna, not again letting that service becoming like a ritual. Always remembering the purpose of the service. The real purpose is to attach ourselves to Krishna, keeping that purpose in mind, do service to Krishna, and then Krishna will take note, and then he will shower the mercy upon us. And then in some way or the other, because of his mercy, we will get strong impulse, we will get impelled to go towards Krishna. So of course, bhakti does not fully arouse without Krishna's mercy. Krishna's mercy has to be there, but before that, our effort has to be there to serve Krishna, keeping the real purpose in our mind. And we must take this as an urgent call to develop that plan to serve Krishna with full Krishna consciousness. And sometimes the Lord may put us to test also. We must be determined to pass those tests. And with the strength and faith in scriptures, we must invest our time in reading the scriptures so that we can understand how even the best devotees are put under test, and how they emerge victorious, how they emerge successful from those tests. We must derive lessons and inspiration from the scriptures, and then we must make progress in Krishna consciousness in this way. So that is what was the intent of Mother Kunti in asking Lord Krishna to help her in severing her ties with her relatives, family members, and allow her to exclusively focus on Krishna, build relationship only with Krishna, just like the Ganges is going exclusively towards the sea. So thank you so much. I'm sorry for taking extra time. Please offer any corrections or comments if you have. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay.
This is a nice verse, and the purport is wonderful. The devotees do they have questions? I know it's over time, but yeah, it is a serious verse by a sincere, absorbed devotee from Kunti. So it's worth discussing.
So I have a question now, Prabhuji. For example, yesterday we were going on a long drive with my daughter trying to learn driving. So on a highway, we were driving like 70 miles an hour kind of thing. And sitting next to her, I was trying to do Maha Mantra. Okay. Of course, she's kind of used to that driving a little bit, but I was not able to focus. I knew that at certain level, look, Krishna is there, he'll take care of us. But at the same time, I could not focus on Maha Mantra. I was just trying to, I was like, I was trying to guide her, take left, take right, I don't know, whatever, just go slow kind of thing. So I was just wondering, man, why am I not able to focus on Mahamantra? When Krishna is there, he'll take care of it, right? So why should I be actively guiding her? So just trying to relate to what you said about look, leave it to Krishna, he'll take care of it, right? I'm just trying to figure out the things and connect it. Could you be able to help clarify it?
I can try, and other devotees can please add. Um, we must now, in this particular situation, she's driving, she's new to driving, she's not experienced in that, and this is something that is, driving and all this is not natural to human beings. We have come up with all this material infrastructure and everything, and now we have to force ourselves to learn all these new things. So it is our duty to be careful. When Krishna was instructing Arjuna to fight, Arjuna was fighting with full focus. He was not fighting suboptimally with half level of energy. That okay, if I make any mistake, Krishna was there, right there with him, literally, and he will fix all the problems if I make any. So he was not being sloppy, or he was not at that time saying, "Oh, all I have to do is think of Krishna." We have to develop that muscle to remember Krishna as well as to do what is needed with full focus, with full attention, completely properly. And especially in this case, when you're driving, I have heard a story where devotees wanted to cross the road on a highway, and some said, "Oh, let's just chant the name of Krishna and cross, even if the red sign, the walk sign was not on. Krishna will protect." So we cannot be sloppy. We have to be, that's not the right understanding at all. That you start walking when the traffic is, moving, hoping because we are devotees. And yes, for his pure devotees, Krishna will protect. So we must understand, do we have that pure devotion that Krishna will protect? These are all sort of mental gymnastics that Krishna will protect. We must do whatever we are committed to do. If we committed that we will take my daughter on a drive to teach her driving, we must focus on that. And that's not the time to mix. If that is, if she's expert driver and you're sitting and she is practiced and everything, yes, definitely you can enjoy the ride. And I'm looking forward to the day when I'm not the driver anymore and my children can drive and I can sit and relax like they're relaxing for all these years, and having fun in the back seat while I am focusing on driving. But during the time of teaching, we have to be very careful. So we must not uh, there are plenty of other times when we don't have such um, responsibility on our shoulders to be careful, to put our attention on the road, whatever may be the case. We have to focus, or we have to see what happens to our attention in those moments. Is it going off here and there, or are we fully focused in those moments? If our attention is going off here and there, even in those moments when those crucial responsibilities are not on us, then we have to see what is that thing in our heart which is causing us to say, "Oh, I want full focus here. Why is Krishna not allowing me to fully focus right now? Because I have to focus on the driving." We have to see, are we fully focused when there is no such responsibility, when we are sitting in a quiet room with picture or a deity in front of us? Are we able to fully focus even then? If the answer is no, then first that should be the objective to accomplish. Let's try to develop the focus at that moment when there is no other crucial responsibility on our shoulders. And then we can hope to become like Arjuna, where he was fighting a battle and yet able to focus on Krishna at the same time. So let's try to practice in simpler situations first. before we try to apply this concept in more complex situations. I don't know about you, but I definitely am very, very far from applying my mind fully on Krishna, even when I am sitting idle and my only job is to breathe and think of Krishna. There is nothing else that I have to do. Even then, it is hard for me. So, first, we need to practice there. Like in driving, first we practice on empty roads or in the parking lot before going into a busy street. Does
Thank you,
that help?
Prabhuji. Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Thanks, Dhanatkanam. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Thanks so much for the beautiful class on attachment and detachment. And we have heard so many times that, and I've heard from you as well, that Krishna talks about asakta and asakta. So one should not, asakta is a preliminary part, and then asakta comes in the 7th chapter when you, Krishna says, Armai sakta manapartha. So I just, I was wondering where can I find a reference where attaching to Krishna will bring detachment automatically. We always heard that, and we just explain the same thing as well. And I found that in the 11th canto, the 2nd chapter and the 42nd verse, where Bhagavad Navayogendra's Kavi talks about that beautiful thing. It says, devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In
Eka
the same,
kalena, it says. The verse says Eka kalena. They all happen simultaneously
yes,
at the
yes,
same time.
exactly. So there's a thing. So attaching to taking shelter of Krishna automatically gives detachment to rest of the things. Boo. It's really, yeah. Thanks so much for a beautiful class, Boo. I need to listen once again. So many wonderful points you mentioned. And if I may, Boo, about every Prabhu's question, I remembered a pastime given by one of the devotees about when we are doing something, we think that Krishna should save us when we do anything, when we're in kind of danger. So this between Ramdas, Surdas and Tulsidas. So Surdas, is a great devotee of Krishna, and Tulsidas is a great devotee of Lord Ram. And Surdas invited Lord Tulsidas actually to come to Vrindavan. And Surdas took Tulsidas for a Govardhan Parikrama. And at the same time, at the time, there's a mad elephant coming in front, and Surdas, he's blind, but he could hear. So the elephant is trumpeting, very widely. So he tries to find a tree somewhere and just tries to go up the tree. But Tulsidas stands on the ground, stands there and said, "No, Lord Ram will take care of me, no problem." And then he stands chanting starts chanting the name of Lord Ram, and the elephant comes near him and then stops, and then sits down, and then Tulsidas chants the name of Lord Ram in the elephant's ear, and they become fully pacified and goes away. And then after everything, Surdas comes down again, and Tulsidas asks, "Oh, in a sarcastic way, oh, you were a great devotee of Krishna. You didn't have faith that Krishna will save you. Oh, you're so, you're saying Krishna, 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 everything. You see how Lord Ram saved me." Right? So what is your, what is the explanation of you going, hiding, finding a tree? The Surdas says that, well, I don't have any problem. I have full faith in Krishna, but why Krishna is my master? Why would I want him to serve me? To save me from each and everything, I should be serving him. So all these kind of things, if I can make sure that I can save myself, I can do something to save myself and not cause any inconvenience to my master, why would I do that? So that is who I just remembered about serving Krishna instead of Krishna making Krishna serve us, when we can use our intelligence, but giving the intelligence given by Krishna, and help or rectify some things instead of causing any inconvenience to Krishna. Yeah, thank you.
We should not demand Krishna's interference to save us. We should always try to serve Krishna rather than demanding his service or depending on his ability or his intent to protect us.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
You
much.
other questions or comments? So I'll speak. I appreciated the discussion on levels of attachment, going from the superficial to deeper, based on their closeness to our false ego versus pure ego versus the real ego. And I really like the statement about when Kunti is praying to Lord Krishna that he may increase her attraction to her. So devotees not in this mood of, I'm the doer, understanding that mercy is needed to get that attachment for Krishna. So you mentioned that. And that was nice, wonderful to hear. Also, I appreciate the point about, one can make, which the Prabhupada calls like an intellectual adjustment, that, okay, I'm attached to my family members or whatever. And that's a way attachment to Krishna as well. Mind can play some mind jugglery or whatever you want to call it. So it's very subtle and I think challenging for all of us because we have such strong, so Prabhupada calls it selfish and extended selfish interests, right, in Gita. So I appreciate those comments. I think that's something I always struggle with is, am I designing this because of something else, or is it because of consciousness of what's pleasing to Krishna? Comment about Ravi Prabhu. Ravi Prabhu, your example, I think is a demonstration of attachment 1 and 2 that Parama Karuna was talking about. You're on the highway, there's identification with the body, of course, for both yourself and for your daughter. And so, the needful comes into place where you have to divert attention from your japa to something else that requires kind of like an emergency situation, I guess. So I think just that awareness that, hey, my attention is not where it should be, that's also devotional. That's a heightened sense of awareness who you are. And I think we see in Gita how Lord Krishna describes through many verses how practicing bhakti increases one's sense of self-awareness. What's my motivation? What's my desire? And so I think that's nice that you're doing that and you're aware. When I read this verse, I think of several things. This is Satyam Param Dhimahi. She's looking for that absorption in Krishna. And this verse exemplifies her absorption and her prayer for absorption for Lord Krishna. So that's very nice understanding I received from this verse. The other thing I saw from this verse that I really liked was how she first says matihi, attention, and then she says ratim, attraction. So, sometimes when I notice this in myself, that people sometimes, why don't I have taste for chanting? Why don't I have taste for reading Bhagavatam? Why don't I have taste for, these sorts of things? And it's because attention is not there. And when attention is poor, then attraction will not manifest. So that was a nice understanding. What she's saying is by having this attention and attraction, then obstacles to devotional service will go away, just like the Ganga flowing in spite of obstacles. And that was something I appreciated from there. So I think the key question becomes how to become attentive, understanding our attachments, right? And I think Kapil Dev describes that very nicely to Devahuti when she says, how can we're embedded in a material world and we have material attachments. Will a soul ever come out of this material world? And he said, yes. And he said, there's only two ways to do it. One is, Tivra Bhakti, serious discharge of devotional service. And the second is Shruta Sambhrataya Chiram, hear about the Lord for a long time. So hearing about Krishna continuously for a long time, Srila Prabhupada uses that analogy of putting iron into a fire. And in that way, hearing and seriously practicing, it brings out our dormant attention and attraction of the Lord, thence comes up. So this verse is so practical in many ways. Yes, it's a prayer of devotion, it's a prayer of surrender, it's a prayer of love and absorption of Krishna, but it's also saying, hey, for my part, at least let me be attentive in the acts of bhakti. And the only way to become attentive is to hear about Krishna continuously. So those were some understandings I received from this verse as well. So thank you, Parama Karuna, for expanding on these various aspects of this verse. Thank you very much. Anything else anybody else wants to say? Okay, so I think we adjourn for today. Parama Karuna Prabhu ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.